Hey guys, it's Brianna, and today we are going to talk about periods. Yes, you heard that correctly. So I'm gonna make this disclaimer one time and only one time at the beginning of the video so that you are all aware that this entire video is one big TMI. This whole thing is going to be way too much information. So if that is not your thing, if you don't want to hear about periods, if you don't want to hear about blood, if you don't want to hear about bodies, if you don't want to hear about bodily functions or anything that goes along with it, this is not the video for you. However, if maybe you just recently got your period and you feel weird about it, or you don't have anyone you can talk to about it and you have questions, or maybe you're just looking for some good tips and tricks, this might be the right video for you. If you don't have your period yet, but you think you could be getting it soon, this is also a good video for you. And if you're someone like me who has had a period for a while now, but can always use some more tips and tricks, this might be a good video for you. Also, if you've had a period for a while and you have other tips and tricks to share, please leave them in the comments below as well. I said my disclaimer, this video is TMI, so from here on out, you've been warned. Now before we jump into it, the reason I wanted to make this video is because I slowly started to realize over time that there were so many things about getting your period that I never knew, that I wish I knew when I first got my period, so I thought, let me just make a video. At first, I was like, do I really have enough, tips and tricks and like little things to talk about to make a whole video? And as I started writing them down, I was like, wow, there's actually a lot of information that I never knew that I wish I knew back then. So I figured, let me just make a video. I hope somebody out there finds this helpful. First thing I want to talk about is birth control. Obviously, pills are not the only form of birth control, but the reason I wanted to bring up birth control is because I think it's a bit of a faux pas. People don't really like talking about it all too much because when you first think of birth control, the main thing you think of is preventing pregnancy. But that is not the only thing that birth control can be good for. What I didn't realize is that birth control is just essentially a way to regulate your hormones. And so, in turn, birth control can do a lot of things. It can regulate your period. It can help to clear your skin if you have bad acne. It can help if you have really bad cramps or you get really sick during your periods. There's so many different things that birth control can be used for, and I actually started birth control, I believe it was my senior year of high school. It may have been my freshman year of college, one of the two. I started birth control because I had really irregular periods, I had really terrible cramps, and I had bad skin. And birth control for me cleared up all of those issues. I'm not saying that it's the end-all be-all, like the period saver or anything. It definitely works differently for everybody, and like I said, there are many different forms of birth control, and there are also many different pills you can get. Definitely consult with your doctor because there can be a lot of side effects that come along with birth control, but if you're struggling with your period a lot, it's something to think about. Another disclaimer before we go on, I am not a doctor in any way, shape, or form, so before you take any of my advice, make sure you consult with your actual doctor. These are just tips that I have found helpful over time and that I wanted to share, but make sure you consult with a doctor if you have questions or if you want to try any of the things that I'm talking about. Another thing that I didn't know about when I first got my period is that there are a ton of period tracking apps out there. Basically, you download this app and you can mark which days you have your period, and it will tell you what stage you're in. So it will tell you if you're ovulating, it will tell you when you can likely expect your next period. There's a ton of cool features. I don't personally use a period tracking app, but I know some of my friends who aren't on birth control that like to keep track of their periods use that. Also, if you're sexually active, it's just another way to be able to track when you are fertile and all those kinds of things. So if you're trying to prevent pregnancy or if you're trying to get pregnant, it can be good to be able to track the days you're ovulating and all of those things. The next thing I want to talk about has to do with pads and tampons. I think that when every girl is learning about her period, you're kind of told these are the two things that you use and that's pretty much it. But that is actually not the case. There are tons of alternatives to pads and tampons. You can get period underwear, which is exactly what it sounds like, reusable underwear that kind of has like a thicker lining that you can just wash. That's good for people who are environmentally conscious, that don't want to be constantly throwing away pads, because it is definitely not great for the environment. Another option, which I have tried, is a menstrual cup. This is the Lily cup. A lot of people, though, when they first hear about menstrual cups, are hearing about this. This is the Diva cup. I have tried both of these. This one I hated and this one I loved. So if you're gonna try out a menstrual cup, make sure you do your research, because I tried this one first and I thought it was like the worst invention ever. I hated it. It didn't work well for me. And then I did my research and realized it was because this cup was just not the right cup for me. Went with this one and I use this all the time. If you're not familiar with a menstrual cup, it is somewhat similar to a tampon in that you're inserting it, but you fold it like so. There's a lot of different folds you can do, but this is the fold that I use. Fold it, stick it up, it pops open and you kind of wiggle it around, and then this part seals so that blood cannot seep through. It catches in here and then you pull it out using this little nub on the bottom. The good thing about menstrual cups is there is no risk of toxic shock syndrome like you get with a tampon, and you can leave them in for a lot longer. I think tampons, they say 4 to 8 hours you can leave them in. These you can leave in for 12. So the only time you'll be changing it is when you're home in a private bathroom. A lot of times I will literally just change it in the shower. Menstrual cups are not easy, but they can be worth it. And the reason I'm saying that is because I've seen a lot of videos online about people talking about how menstrual cups are like the greatest invention. It's like the easiest, most convenient form of like period care product out there and all of this stuff. When actually it's a learning process, and it's definitely not easy, but it can be very worth it. Like I said, it is very nice to only have to change it every 12 hours, which means you really only have to change it twice, and you can do it in the privacy of your own bathroom. It can also be a lot more comfortable than a tampon because nothing's hanging out, and it's definitely more environmentally friendly and cheaper because this is reusable, whereas a tampon, of course, it's disposable. You're throwing it out every time and you're having to buy new ones. So they do have their perks, but don't get me wrong, it's a learning process. It's gonna take you a while to get used to it. I tried this one, like I said earlier, absolutely hated it. And I kind of gave up on menstrual cups for a little bit, and then I did some more research and I found this one and I liked it a lot. So definitely do your research and find out what works for you, and take your time. It's not gonna happen overnight. And there are a ton of other alternatives to pads and tampons. I know some of my friends use menstrual discs, which I have not tried yet, but I do want to try them. If you guys are interested in that, maybe I can document the experience. Obviously I won't be showing anything, but just if anyone's interested in menstrual discs, I could make a video about it if I do end up trying them. But just know that pads and tampons are not the end-all be-all of period products. The next thing I want to talk about is the fact that any of these things that you are inserting cannot get lost in your body. That is not how anatomy works. It is not just like this endless cavern that opens up into your body and like you're gonna have a tampon floating around up there. That is not how it works. Although I will say I was afraid the first time I tried a tampon that it was gonna go too far up. Can things get stuck up there? Sure, but they're not gonna go anywhere. So you don't really have any risk that something is gonna go up there and get lost. So bear that in mind when you're trying things like tampons or menstrual cups. I'm not saying you won't have difficulty getting things out from time to time, but nothing's gonna get lost up there, don't worry. The next thing I want to talk about is a bit of an awkward one, but we're all friends here. Periods do not only just affect you in the sense that you bleed for however many days a month. That's not the only thing that happens. It affects everything in your body. It's a hormonal change. And so for me, that means that I'm just gonna come out and say it. I poop a lot. I'm sure other women have experienced this too. Some people experience constipation. I, on the other hand, experience the opposite. I think you know where I'm going with this. And I think one thing I really hate about having my period is never feeling clean. Like you always just kind of feel gross. And I know all of us period having folks have experienced taking a shower, getting all nice and clean and feeling great, and the second you get out, you're bleeding and you gotta take a poop. And now you're like, well, I just took a shower, but now I feel disgusting again. What was the point of that? Well, I have something that can help. Summer's Eve cleansing cloths. This is not sponsored whatsoever by any of the products I'm showing, but I absolutely love these. Like I said, this is a bit of an awkward one, but if you're feeling a little gross down there, and obviously this is not an alternative to showering, you should be showering every day, but if you run into a situation like the one I just mentioned where you just got out of the shower, you're all nice and clean, and then it's a mess, you have something that can help clean you up. The good thing is that these are pH balanced, so it's very good for down there. They have different scents, they have unscented, they have ones for sensitive skin, they got all the things. So it's just nice to have something to be able to, freshen up when you need to. You can usually find these in the same aisle where you would find pads and tampons and all that kind of stuff. Just remember, if it doesn't say flushable on the package, you can't throw it in the toilet and flush it. Make sure you put them in the trash. Your plumber will not be very happy if you clog up your toilet with a whole bunch of these. But everybody likes to feel fresh, so I thought I should mention this because for a long time I did not know these existed, and I gotta say, I love them. The next thing I want to talk about is that not all blood looks the same. The color, the consistency, all that stuff can be different. You can find blood clots. It can be thicker, it can be thinner. All blood is not the same. It can even be brown. So if one day your blood looks a little bit different than it normally does, do not be alarmed. It's probably nothing. Like I said, I'm not a doctor, so obviously speak to your doctor if you're freaked out about something. But for the most part, if your blood looks weird, it's probably absolutely fine and there's nothing wrong with you. And last but not least, when it comes to having a period, sometimes you just can't help things being stained. Whether it's your underwear or your pants or your bed sheets, things happen, things get stained, and the best method for getting blood out is to do it immediately, and don't use hot water. Make sure you use cold water. I think everybody's instinct when they stain something or when they need to clean something is immediately to use hot water because for some reason we feel like it's more sanitary. It's gonna sanitize the mess. But actually when you use hot water, it makes the stain worse. So make sure you use cold water on blood stains. And that is my final tip for this video. If you found it helpful, make sure you give it a like. And like I said, if anyone has any other tips they want to add, leave them in the comments below. And I'm also always open for questions. And let me know if you like this kind of video. Maybe I'll do more videos like this in the future. But that's gonna do it. Hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you next time. Bye.